back in the saddle. Who do we got on the line tonight?
Oh, yes. So we're going to be bringing up Brian. He wants to talk about, at least from the screener notes, people should use expert consensus and refer to that when they are not experts themselves. But how do we determine expertise? Brian, you are on with BrainBug and Ethan. How are you?
Hey guys, I figured I was going to be on first, Brian, of course. I do think it is rational, and I do want to avoid committing the Dunning-Kruger effect. So I do think it is rational when we are not experts ourselves on the subject to make an appeal to expertise on that same subject. And that's easy to say, hard to do. And so I'm wondering, how is it that we humans actually do that? How we determine if there is an expert consensus on a given issue, and also how should we, what improvements can we make in how we do that? I can give you some specific topics, examples if you want, so you know what I'm talking about. Some are more abstract, some are more mundane. For instance, we can talk about climate change. If a person says, I don't know if the earth is warming or cooling or anything, how does a person actually determine that, and how should they determine that? Is it just they go to their local news and that's the best they can do? I doubt 99.9% of us are going to read nature and science journals and be able to understand what's being explained in them. And even what's mentioned and written in scientific journals, it's not going to, I would think, be stuff that's repeating what is already believed in by scientists and community.
And let me cut in here real quick, because I'm on board with you right here until the 99% of people aren't going to read the journals or make that effort. I don't think that's, I think that should be our goal. I think that we should have the goal to get as many people fluent and enough to read primary research, to have enough of a basic understanding of these topics to vet primary research. Obviously, that's the goal in any field, that we want to get all of our students that are working in that field to a point where they can do that. So what it comes down to is the amount of education you put behind that. So when you're talking to someone who's in a field or referencing someone who's in a field, having a firm understanding of what goes in, not what their field is, not the topic that they're studying, but what goes into their education into that field. What have they done? What have they put into it?
Okay. So I could go to my doctor and I asked for their accreditation, for instance, and they give it to me. And that's one example that I think would work well in that case. And doctors make referrals to other doctors, and they'll say, okay, get a second opinion or see this other specialist, for instance. So I think that would work well to your point.
Right. Yeah. Cause you go into the medical professional and you know what goes into the education of being a doctor, right? You know what goes into, and maybe it's because we glamorize it in our culture, because they are, heroes. For a lot of them they save our families' lives. They dedicate themselves to saving people. But maybe these other fields of expertise don't have so much, of a spotlight on them, that we don't understand what goes into learning that field and knowing what goes into the education process. I mean, we've got so many shows about like medical school and people going to medical school and things like that, and you learn a lot about what kind of work that they actually do when they're undergoing their education. It's unfortunate that we don't get that for a lot of other fields. So it's just, especially like climate science. That's not only is that a new field, there aren't that many people that are working in it. It's not as widespread as something as like the medical field. So that gets even less exposure. But I mean, I'm fortunate enough to know a couple of climate scientists, but not everybody has that opportunity, and not everybody knows what goes into their education. One of the climate scientists I know, their education took them to work at NASA. That's how highly educated this individual is. So, Pale Blue Mama, if you're watching, that's a shout out to you. So, but anybody else walking off the street or reading the newspaper about climate science is going to think, what goes into this education? They just check the weather or glorified weatherman or something like that.
Well, other sources of information, let's say even Fox News, I've watched them on occasion, and they bring on their, experts to talk about climate change, and they are skeptical of climate change. And I'll go to a different news network, and they have their own climate scientists, and they have an entirely 180 view of climate change. Who do I believe? Both of them are talking over my head, so I can't make it out. And that's one example. Another thing is, like, I've read articles by Ken Hovind or Ken Ham. I get them confused, so I'll mess them up. But both of them, or one of them, they are far more familiar with the terminology of paleontology than I am. If I was going to debate either one of them, they would kick my ass.
Same.
So how do
I
know
get that.
I don't feel the same way, but
dude, no, if and that sucks, but if Ken Ham or Hovind wanted to debate me on the science, I wouldn't be able to handle that conversation. I know it's assumed that when you're an atheist YouTuber, you automatically know all these things. I don't. I'm learning, and some of these people, they know just enough to be dangerous and to sound really smart. Like for me, I guess what I look for is fallacies or mistakes they're making, or any type of bias I can spot through what they're saying. Because you're right, I can't necessarily determine the difference between two experts on opposing news networks. So for me, that's where I start, is seeing if they're making any mistakes.
What a good launch pad for that is to look at when you see someone on Fox News and someone on some other news network, whatever, saying opposing things, to look at both of their detractors and see kind of their, what the arguments against their position are that are being presented. You got to kind of, I don't know, there really is on our response. And maybe as a society, we've gotten too lazy to do that ourselves. And there's only so far you can go, and who do you trust? I get that. But to actually look into credentials, like if you looked into Kent Hovind, who presents himself as Dr. Kent Hovind, if you looked into him, for instance, and did some research as to, okay, who's this individual who's making these claims, and looked into where his education comes from. His degree comes from it's a degree mill. There's actually a picture of it online. You can look it up. It's like a double wide trailer in the middle of the desert. It's really not a school at all. He just filled out a thing, wrote a dissertation that's essentially his same Dr. Dino speech that he gives on his channel, and then got a PhD for it. So that it's not accredited. He's not really a doctor. So that should, when you start seeing things like that, start seeing that maybe this person's misrepresenting their information. Maybe they have an agenda, but really just vetting your sources, I guess, is the best way I can explain it.
Also, we do have open lines. So if you're interested in presenting a claim before us, give us a call, 951-364-2430. Brian, did that answer your there's two Brians. Brian on the phone. Did that answer your question?
It helps. I'll have to process it a bit more. I'll just add on that this first started occurring to me back when I was first deconverting strongly into an atheist about 20 years ago. And I was really getting interested in learning about apologetics and philosophy and logic. And everybody always sang the praises of Lee Strobel. And so I first read his Case for Faith, and I could see with my own eyes what another piece of crap that was. And so it discredited him to me. Then I read his Case for Christ, and it was my first experience and encounter with arguments of historicity. I never even heard of or thought of the idea. I'd only heard of philosophical ideas for God or scientific ideas for God, but historical ideas for the Bible was a brand new concept to me, and I couldn't refute anything that he was saying. But then I read, I remember the book title was Challenging the Verdict. It was Earl Doherty, excuse me. It was a cross-examination of Lee Strobel's Case for Christ. And I could see and compare the two right in front of my own eyes. And I think it was Earl Doherty was his name. And he did a lot more thorough and detailed analysis between the two. So that helps a lot. But if I had only restricted myself to Strobel, I wouldn't have known anything about any flaws in his arguments.
Are you talking about like a argument for mythicism or an argument that for a divine Christ?
Just the historicity, the accuracy of the Bible, the New Testament.
Okay.
Yeah, that's another debate I couldn't handle, the historical accuracy of the Bible. Mm-mm.
Yeah.
I've never cared about. Always been an atheist, and I don't know how people memorize Bible verses. That's
right.
A mystery to me.
Same.
Well, I think I could argue.
Sorry. Although I would say probably by reading it on repeat over and over again.
Yeah, I think I could say that the Bible, the Bible definitely has historical accuracies in it. I don't think that there's too many experts in the field in that area that are going to say that the Bible's wholly fabricated. I mean, there's obvious references to and historical events present in there. There's some that are accurate and some that are less so, from what I understand. But this is an area that I kind of pass it over to my friends who are experts in the field, though, as it's not something I'm well versed in.
So I'll ask you then, what would be your ideas on whether we can determine if there is an expert consensus on whether someone named Jesus existed? I'm not asking for your view if Jesus existed. I'm asking, how could we determine if there was an expert consensus? Can we or no? I don't know.
So we need to. There'd be a lot of moving parts to that kind of investigation, because you'd want to get a fully expert opinion. You need to appeal to people translating. You need to appeal to historians, people who are curating, all these different experts, all looking at the same information, because you got people carbon dating the documents to make sure that there's how old they are, and you got people reading them, you got people translating the languages, you got so many moving parts to it that really you got to look at their resources that they're using when it comes to, because if I don't know, you get into things like the Dead Sea Scrolls, where you'll see a lot of unfounded claims made about them. At least as far as I can tell, they don't seem to be realistic claims. But that's just an example of these old documents having different interpretations, I suppose you would say. But there's also forgeries on that. As far as the New Testament, though, there's not too much in the New Testament that I'm gonna give a hard disagree to across the board. That's me though. I'm not an expert. Who would be the experts on that? Depends on what aspect. It depends on if you're talking about an expert on how old this stuff is. Then you're looking at people that are carbon dating that. If you're wanting, on how well it was transmitted, there's yeah.
We got Brian.
Yeah. If you if you want to know locations for where a book came from, you can. There's different insects and things that'll eat the pages or chew the glue.
Wait, no.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah. So you could track where a document was stored at or whatever that way. So there's so many people that are going to have their hands in the pie on that. It depends on what aspect you're looking into.
This is actually really fascinating. Can you go into that a little bit more? So what do they do? Like find a fossilized bug? And
you could find a molt of a silverfish or common animals that are insects that are going to be eating your books. There's different kinds of different species of them that are regional. So if a document was housed in Europe and then rediscovered per se in North America, you could look and see by the species of silverfish that was chewing on the glue where it had been stored at.
That is so cool.
Yeah, that's just with dealing with bugs. You get into people talking about different kinds of inks used to pin things, where different papers come from, different bindings, what population of cattle that if it's leather bound that the leather came from. They can trace so much information through all these different ways of archiving and that's why consensus isn't just one field. It's all of these fields conglomerating together to form a picture of our history, a picture of our physical universe that we live in. It's all these fields working together in unison.
This is probably one of the most interesting things I've learned in a while. I could never imagine different bugs eating pages to determine where a book is from. That's pretty cool. And I got to say, this is, I think, the first perspective in a long time, Brian, BrainBug, where we haven't had people waiting on hold. So if you want to talk to us, 951-364-2430. Brian, did you have any other questions?
Completely different subjects. Sure.
Okay. What other questions do you have? We'll take one more.
Okay. About a week or two ago, I called in to Truth Wanted, spoke to Aaron and Dave Warnock, and asked them a question about how it is that we can laugh at our old beliefs and how silly our old beliefs were. I've been a lifelong atheist, and I don't consider any beliefs that I've ever held in my life to be silly.
Really?
I've definitely held, and I've done dramatic reversals on my beliefs, but I never look back on my beliefs and laugh at them. I never say, oh man, that's so stupid. And I've always wondered about the mentality of various atheists, especially who do laugh at their own beliefs. Does it feel like, I don't know about your two backgrounds there with you two guys, but if you had been Christians, and especially fundamentalists with what you now consider silly beliefs, whenever somebody else or yourself is making fun of those beliefs, do you feel that they are making fun of you at the same time?
So I will always do my best never to laugh at somebody else's beliefs, but I do actually laugh at my own. Because there were some beliefs I held that I'm just like, come on, Ethan, are you serious right now? You really believe that? Like, so I don't know. For me, it's easy to sometimes laugh at some of my old beliefs, but I guess when those beliefs are someone else's, that's when I try, when I don't want to laugh, because I want people to believe and see that I'm taking their claims as seriously as possible.
As for me, I never was necessarily a theist, but I did do my woo stuff in my younger years, and there's some things that I believed, or that I look back on it now and realize, it's stuff I wanted to believe. Encouraging myself to experience the normal human feelings in your body as something external. And looking back on that now, it does seem silly. And we get a lot of calls with people talking about the energy. I mean, it's always with ghosts and psychic people and all these, and even with some of the UFO people, there's always this energy that they talk about, the effects of this energy on their experience. And I remember those feelings. Religious people probably do remember those feelings too, from being in like church. The people will talk about the feelings, the euphoria and stuff. And I do look back and feel silly about mistaking these biological responses for something external. But I can see now, looking back, that it was more of a want to believe that that's what it was. Fake it till you make it sort of approach.
Well, on my earlier call, on the earlier program, I had mentioned that when I was first coming out publicly from the closet as an atheist, and then becoming more courageous and being willing to criticize religion, I was just afraid of religion still. At the same time, religion was very intimidating to me, and what helped give me that courage was to laugh at religion myself, and seeing other people laugh at religion. It really shook it down and took it down a couple notches. And things like Kissing Hank's Ass, or Landover Baptist, or Mrs. Betty Bowers, or The Onion, all these parody websites and satires were just great, and gave me courage and making me realize that, all the things that I think about religion that are absurd actually do seem absurd. It's not just me, not just some flaw in my thinking. And so those things help. But I don't know if you're familiar with Kissing Hank's Ass in particular.
I have never heard of it.
I know Mrs. Betty Bowers, though.
Really good. Okay, Kissing Hank's Ass at first was written as a script. It's a parody of people defending Christianity. That's how I first encountered it, but it was later turned into several videos. You should do a search for it. The best one is 4 friends who are playing poker. So search for that. But it just reveals how absurd Christianity is, the claims of it, and then the apologetics behind it, what it sounds like to an outsider of it. So things like that really help me. But anytime somebody like The Onion or Mrs. Betty Bowers or such makes a parody of God, makes a parody of religious believers, and just makes it really funny to watch. I don't know how people who used to believe that cannot be offended at the same time. It's just a different experience that we have,
Right.
Especially people who laugh at their own former beliefs.
Well, George Carlin's been doing that, or was doing that back in the 70s, right? Making jokes about religion and belief in God and stuff. And I think a lot of people find that cathartic, especially when they're coming out of religion, and they feel like, these people have been spending my whole life trying to trick me. That's gotta leave it sting, and having something, some kind of situation where you can be in, where you can say, so stick it to them and make fun of them. It feels good to lash out at the people that you felt like they were oppressing you, all your life for the most part. But eventually we all get to, I shouldn't say we all do. Some people stay in that stage forever, but eventually a lot of us move on to a more engaging approach that we want. I don't know. I feel like I want to wake people up from bad ideas. That's my goal, to say, hey, is this really, do you think this is a justified and rational belief if we look into it? I mean, that's always a more, I don't know, amicable approach to engaging with people.
I think that is helpful for people who are already religious themselves, but for people like me who are not religious and still thought religious beliefs were silly, I was in the closet partly because I was still afraid of religion. So I think making fun of religion helps equip us and encourages us to not be so afraid of it. So I think it has a great use there. I was very confident after seeing people make fun of religion to come out, and I probably would have delayed coming out if that hadn't happened.
Right.
And I wouldn't be as vocal against religion if I hadn't come across people who are making fun of it. So I think it works on that end also.
We just need all different types of voices out there. There's not one atheist style that necessarily is going to work. Well, I guess I can't say that. I'm sure some styles work better than others, but for my beliefs, I needed a more aggressive touch because I prefer to be like shaken out of or abruptly pulled out of a bad belief. Like, of course, I'd prefer in a friendly way, but I needed someone to, I don't want to even say harshly, but really point out where I was screwing up. And that's what got me from point A to point B.
You think I would have been able to reach conservative Ethan?
Nope.
No?
Well, okay. I don't know, Brian. You're so nice that you may have been able to. All you really had to do was keep me talking and just keep asking questions. You're calm enough and patient enough that you might actually have been able to do it. It wouldn't have been over like one conversation. It would have taken some time because, dude, I'm telling you, my Facebook memories, there's
some of them.
There's some I'll share with you guys privately that I won't even post because I'm like, this is just too embarrassing. There's no way I'm sharing this, because I would post some right-leaning shit. So not stuff I'm proud of. Anyway, Brian, we want to thank you for taking the time to call in and speak with us.
Yeah, it's been good talking to you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate
Thanks, Brian. Have a good one.
All right. Good night.